Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have more of the team joining us from ADAC. That's right. We're talking about all they provide for K-12 schools, systems, networks, and all they do to help really with their educational missions from teaching, learning, educating, fundraising, and really here to empower school leaders and teachers to effectively teach students with learning differences. So welcome everyone to the show. How are we?
Great, Jill.
Great. Thanks for having us, Jill.
Great. Pleasure to have everyone here. I know for today's topic, we're going to get down to education challenges to start. But first, let me have Kate McConnell introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what you do and, of course, the company overall.
Sure. So my name is Kate McConnell. I am the Vice President for Student Advocacy at ADAC. And in my role, what I do is I often help schools evaluate their inclusive education programs and support them in strengthening them. And the other hat I really wear is helping families navigate what's called the child find process as they look to find support for their children who have disabilities. With regard to the overall mission of our company, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Drummy, who is one of the founders of ADAC, and I think she could really speak to it.
Wonderful. Welcome, Sandra. How are you?
I'm great, Jill. Thank you. And thank you, Kate. So yes, I'm Sandy Drummy, and I've been with ADAC since its inception. And I currently manage the academic end of things, working with our instructional coaches to offer professional development and instructional coaches in the schools we are working with. I've always been passionate about special education. It was very personal for me. My own son was diagnosed with dyslexia in second grade. So I got to see his struggles, and since then worked very hard to ensure that other students are also identified and helped and can access our education system successfully. So with that, I'd like to introduce Julie as our next team member.
Hi,
Thanks,
Julie.
Sandy. Hi, Jill. I'm Julie Cantillon. I'm Vice President for Academics and Advocacy at ADAC. And I came on board last July after a long career in Catholic education. So I also get to support schools in accessing federal programs, as well as raising capacity to be able to serve all learners in the academic arena.
Perfect. And last but not least, Matthew Maloney, please introduce yourself to everyone as well.
Yes, thanks, Jill. My name is Matt Maloney. I'm the Vice President for Educational Partnerships at ADAC. I joined the team this past July with Julie after 15 plus years in education as a teacher, leader, administrator. And I'm really charged with expanding our business network of school clients and districts and organizations that we work with. So I'm on the front lines of just really building new partnerships for ADAC with new schools.
And let me ask, where are you all based out of, and where is ADAC helping those?
That's $1 million question. So I'll just start off with where I am. So I'm coming to you right now from Quincy, Illinois. I'm based in Chicago. I help clients in Iowa, Florida, California, and am I missing anywhere? And
Iowa?
Iowa, did I say Iowa? Yeah. So, and with regards to families, I'm helping families all across the country, Michigan, North Carolina, Missouri, etc. And I did want to point out that I actually help families who have children in private schools and families who have children in public schools with accessing supports in special education.
So ADAC is nationwide, correct? Not worldwide yet?
Sea to shining sea.
Perfect. And let me ask how we can reach out to you. Could you share the websites, of course, that are associated, so our listeners could get more acclimated to the work you're doing before we get started for today's topics?
Yes, absolutely. Our private education website is www.theadac.com, theadac.com. Our public school website is theadacpublic.com. And then our advocacy website is theadacadvocacy.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So who wants to start off by talking about, the educational challenges that are facing out there and what some of those are?
I'll be happy to start off, Jill. So yes, we've had a number of challenges, I think, since the pandemic. And it's been rewarding to work with our schools to not only help identify some of these challenges that they're seeing within their schools, but also assist them in finding some solutions. Some of the challenges we're seeing is the learning loss as a result of the pandemic. Even though schools were doing their best to remain online and teach online, we are still seeing now that students have experienced learning loss. There has been an uptick in social and emotional issues among students for various reasons. And we've been able to help, schools not only identify, but help in those areas also. Kate, do you want to share more about that?
Sure. Sandy mentioned social emotional learning, and I think that is a big component that is underlining a lot of the stressors that we're seeing in schools, especially when it comes to teacher shortages, frustration of parents, collaboration with families, and just to speak to it, there are 5 core competencies that make up social emotional learning. And I would say probably the 2 biggest ones that are affecting our students are that self-awareness and self-management. So we see a lot of dysregulation of children in the school. We're especially seeing that in the younger years as well as the older years, which is, as Sandy said, a little bit or a lot because of the pandemic. There was a lot of having to learn how to self-regulate at home that you would have been learning at school, while children's brains are really rapidly growing in those early years and then those adolescent years. And it's caused a lot of issues with self-regulation. And that is very difficult for schools and teachers to navigate when there is not only a lack of teachers, but a lack of service providers. So we have more being put on teachers who are even more stretched. And then we keep telling teachers, make sure to take care of yourself, yet they don't have time. And sometimes even telling them to take care of themselves can be even stressful for them to just hear. So it is a really tricky time right now for teachers, families, and students. And I have to say, that's one reason why I love being at ADAC, because I feel like we're a little bit of a lifeline for teachers, for students, and for families.
Beautifully said. Who wants to piggyback on that?
I wholeheartedly agree with both Sandy and Kate, and it's identifying teachers and leaders for the schools as well. It's no surprise with the more teachers are being asked of, the less desirable it's becoming for a career. There's a lot of teachers who, due to the pandemic, decided to retire early or change careers. And so simply finding vacancies in the local public school district where I reside in Florida, last year they started the school year with hundreds of vacancies in the school district, and that's similar to private and public schools. The same problems arise, and then identifying strong leaders in the schools to help navigate the ship and sail the ship so that students can learn. So, Julie.
Yeah, and I think there are so many problems, as everyone has already shared, that it's hard for teachers to know where to prioritize and where school leaders, how to prioritize. And oftentimes what we're seeing too is, there's an increase in students, increase in serving the number of students with disabilities at all of the schools that we're seeing, but maybe, not as much focus on how do you really create that best first instruction within that tier 1 environment. So looking to see how can we really strengthen our tier 1 supports so that way we don't have so many students who need that significant level of support. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of schools are facing right now. They have so many students in need of intervention that it's really hard to prioritize, the tier 1 instruction to ensure that all have a solid foundation before sourcing those interventions.
All right. And also, I know for today, you want to talk a little bit more about the teacher shortages, right? So the special education, reading and math, and really just a whole new world. I mean, since the pandemic, right? How things have changed and virtual learning. But I have a 7 and 9 year old. They were affected by obviously having to be homeschooled at young ages. And you still wonder now, what are the effects of all this going to be on our students and the fear and the did that really affect their social skills, not being in a, one-on-one setting and all students, right? Whether they have special needs or not, just so many things are just so different for our children and what they went through. But just again, want to point out we're talking here to the whole team from ADAC and excited to have you here. Let's remind everyone again, Matt, the best website to reach everyone before we continue.
Yes, our main website is www.theadac.com. That's THEADAC.com. And then you can visit theadacpublic.com, which is more specific for our public education clients, and then the ADACadvocacy.com, which is our non-for-profit, which helps families better access IDEA and federally funded services for students with disabilities.
Yep, and we got to thank Steve Perler, Tom Olson. Of course, we chatted with them last week. I got to get an overview of the company and what you all do, and it's fascinating. There's help out there. There's people out there willing to help, and people like you that are available. So let's talk a little bit more about some other teacher challenges or educational challenges, I should say. In what department did you want to kind of go to next?
Well, I think and what we're seeing this year, Jill, and it's really come to the forefront is that just recently we've gotten a couple of calls from school leaders that we've been working with, and they're noticing, like you mentioned earlier, that both the literacy and the math scores are not where they should be, and the students are not performing or making that academic progress that we would like to see them make. Whether or not that is an effect of COVID, we'll wait to see. I'm sure there's going to be some great books and movies that come out about COVID. But right now, we have to deal with the situation at hand. And I think Julie made an excellent point, working with classroom teachers on that core instruction and helping them realize that it's okay. Give yourself some grace to slow it down. Let's make sure these kiddos master what we need them to master because teachers, and we know ourselves as educators, we have a set of standards and benchmarks that we would like to meet every year and teach the students, but in some cases the students just aren't ready yet. So that's where our work has really been beneficial, because we come in and work very closely with teachers in person and virtually to kind of like remap some of the curriculum. Let's go back for some of these students that need that extra time so they can master what they need, because building those foundational learning blocks is going to be important for them to meet success. Kate, Julie, Matt?
Yep.
Well, just thinking
Yep,
too about how, sorry, Matt, how teachers could work better together too, and supporting that overall professional learning community structure at schools. Because I think during the pandemic too, a lot of teachers went more toward isolation and were working individually. And what we're seeing was that need and that desire to collaborate together to be able to recognize that these are all of our students. These aren't just my fifth grade students. These are all of our students in this school, and that together we have better, stronger capacity to be able to serve these learners. So some of the work we're doing too is around building systems and structures of support for these teachers to be able to participate in this professional learning community structure. Again, so it's not all just depending on me as their fifth grade teacher, but I can leverage the strengths of others in the school building and beyond in order to meet the needs of all learners, both in that tier 1 core instruction, but also in determining the best interventions for students who may not be responding to that tier 1 instruction. Matt?
Absolutely. I just wanted to piggyback on both of you. I think one of the hallmarks of ADAC, which makes us so unique, is twofold. One is that we customize our services to each school and each classroom that we work with. We're not a cookie cutter company where it's, we take out the system out of our box and you have to figure out how our system works in your classroom. We see how we fit into your classroom and into your school. And secondly is that instructional coaching, which is so valuable. And as Julie pointed out, it builds a community of professionals within the school and with us, because for so long, teachers have been these little islands within a school, and their classroom was their domain. And I think it's really understanding and helping bridge that gap, that we're all a team trying to help these students and these schools improve, and we can't do it alone. Nobody is capable of doing it alone. And so we really have to work together on this with and get the systems within the schools to talk to each other. We talked about social emotional learning. Well, if the counselor is not talking to the school nurse, who is not talking to the teacher, who is not talking to the principal, everybody's working in silos, and we're working harder, not smarter. And so getting these systems all working in place and working smarter together is going to make a greater impact on the students, both in the short term and in the long term.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback off that, I want to say one of the things I was thinking of, Matt, is exactly what you were talking about, is that teaching is now a team sport. And, parents are also much more educated as to where their children should be. Just like everything else, there's easy access to information, and it is students learn best, and the research shows that they do better when we're working in collaboration, we being educators and family members and service providers. But I did also want to mention, with regards to COVID, Sandy had said, there are going to be books and movies, and I can't wait to see what these kids are going to do. The one positive that came out of COVID that I think we forget about, and that is helpful to teachers, is to remind them that these children really learned resilience, and they really learned how to take care of themselves, maybe not in the ideal way that we would like them to. So we're seeing challenges in school because of that. But how impressive that these children were able to do so much during the day, pretty much on their own. And little kids too, we saw doing. So I also think sometimes we get caught up in what is, the learning loss, the stress the teachers are under, which are all true things, but there's a lot of positive things that are going out there too. And I think it's important we focus on that to build up teachers as well. And I do think that's something ADAC does well too, is work with the strengths of the students, the strengths of the teachers, to bring everybody to the next level.
Beautifully said. All right. We still have 6 minutes left in the show. So I just want to point out we're here with our team, Julie, Kate, Matthew, Sandra, and we got to thank, of course, Steve and Tom, who we've gotten to know from ADAC, and excited about all the work they're doing to help so many. And more in the education department, what other problems are you seeing that are challenges out there that your team is able to help with?
Well, I'd love to address this a little bit. So there is a service called Child Find, and that's the term for navigating the system to get children evaluated who you might suspect have a disability. And this is a service that is available to all families in the U.S., whether your child is attending public school, attending private school, and it's the process for determining if, let's say, all these wonderful things are put in place. Tier 1, that basic, strong research-based instruction, and then interventions have put in place, and a child is still struggling, any family can go through the public school district to get their child evaluated. We're seeing across the country that is not really working the way it's designed to be working. There is a timeline everyone is supposed to follow and stick to, and that is not happening. And one of the reasons, again, why that's not happening is because there's a teacher and a service provider shortage. So a lot more and more is being put on our educators, our service providers. In addition, there is a real concern about over-identifying children with disabilities, and there's a little bit too much focus on the process and checking boxes as opposed to the purpose, which is to find out, is this child struggling with a disability? And if so, what is the next step for supporting that child? So we see that process not quite working the way it should be.
Yes, and just for the listeners, this is an area that our ADAC advocacy team would be most equipped to take on, and that's helping families and helping schools with that navigation process of child find. Sometimes when it comes to federal statutes and things, we get sometimes caught up, and our administrative structures get caught up in the bureaucracy and the letter of the law, as opposed to what is the really the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law is to make sure that any child who is having a learning difficulty and is suspected of a learning disability has the opportunity to be evaluated. Otherwise, it becomes a very heavy financial burden on families if they can't get through the process, which is funded and designed to be taken care of at the local public school district, whether you're attending that public school or a private school within that public school district. So either way, it's absolutely a problem, as Kate alluded to. As a principal for 8 years, I had students that we recommended for this process, and it's supposed to take 3 months or so, right, Kate?
Yeah.
It took us over a year to have a child evaluated. And all the while, we're trying interventions, trying to help this child when they could have been getting their speech therapy and their occupational therapy and all those things that would have been services under the federal law IDEA. And so we're here to try and help correct that. We're not here to point fingers and say who's wrong and who's right and whatnot. We really want to be solution based so that we can help as many students as possible.
Beautifully said. Well, we appreciate your time and effort here, and excited to have your team joining us to bring more awareness. And how could people get involved? Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Do you mean getting involved in helping the process or getting involved with ADAC?
All of it, yes. Any suggestions, recommendations before we go? We do have to, repeat how we can contact you.
Yeah.
But any suggestions or ideas to those out there who want to get involved and to help with ADAC, and also those that need the services?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Feel free to visit our website. There's a contact us on that website, and particularly if you want to get involved in supporting the mission, especially of ADAC advocacy.
Yes.
That is a nonprofit organization. www.theadacadvocacy.com. There is an opportunity to donate there as well to support the mission of ADAC advocacy in helping families navigate that process and helping anyone who might not be able to afford those advocacy services that we provide, making that more affordable for those families who need to get services for their students who might have special needs.
Beautiful. Well, thank you and your team for being here, and we appreciate your time. I know next week, I think we have Steve and Tom back to talk more, right? And if you are just tuning in towards the end here, don't forget ADAC is here to help with teaching, learning, fundraising, coaching, special education, and they're here to empower school leaders and teachers all throughout the U.S. And then also the ADAC Advocacy is a newly formed 501c3 organization, which we talked more about that. We talked about that last time. And of course, we'll talk more about that in the future. And in closing today, anyone want to leave off with some last minute comments before we go?
Well, Jill, I just want to say thank you again on behalf of all of us for having us today. I think we could tell we're very passionate about our work.
Clear,
It's one thing I
yes.
can certainly say about everyone in ADAC. We're very passionate about this, and we're here to help anyone that would like to reach out to us.
Right. Thank you again for being here, and hope you guys all have a fantastic day. And I hope we've caught up on some knowledge for our viewers, for our listeners today about all that you do to help empower and advocate for those in need. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill.
All right. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you to all
Bye-bye.
of our
Bye.
listeners and viewers. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
1 in 5 children in the United States have learning differences, making it more challenging than ever to be a teacher or school leader. At ADAC, we empower K-12 educators to meet the learning needs of all students through customized professional development and coaching services. Learn more at www.theadac.com. That's THEADAC.com.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.